The three armed men thought the late-night gas station would be an easy target with minimal security. But security guard Danny Martinez didn't take cover like they expected. Instead, he immediately began implementing tactical response protocols with the precision of someone who had spent 8 years as a Marine Force Recon operator, revealing that their gas station security wasn't just a guard. He was a former elite military specialist whose combat training had been tested in the world's most dangerous operations. Danny Martinez had been working security at the 24-hour QuikStop gas station for 4 years, and in that time he'd become more than just a guard. He'd become a protector of the community's most vulnerable hours. The gas station served a diverse neighborhood where shift workers stopped for fuel on their way to early morning jobs, where travelers needed late-night supplies, and where honest people deserved to feel safe during the hours when most businesses were closed. At 34, Danny carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced dangerous situations and knew how to handle them without creating unnecessary drama. Medium height, athletic build, and the kind of calm presence that made customers feel secure while making potential troublemakers think twice about causing problems. He wore his uniform with professional pride and moved through the station with the methodical awareness of someone who understood that late-night security was about protecting both people and property. The gas station itself was typical of urban convenience stores, fuel pumps under bright lights, a small store stocked with essentials, and the kind of location that provided necessary services to people who worked non-traditional hours. It was honest business that served working families, but it was also the kind of place that attracted criminal attention because of its cash transactions, limited staffing, and late-night operations. What made Danny different from typical retail security was his understanding of how criminal operations planned and executed attacks, especially against isolated targets during vulnerable hours. While other guards focused on shoplifting and customer disputes, Danny found himself automatically assessing threat indicators, monitoring suspicious behavior patterns, and recognizing warning signs that could predict when routine problems might escalate to serious violence. The neighborhood had been experiencing increased criminal activity over the past 6 months. Convenience store robberies, vehicle thefts, and the kind of predatory crime that targeted people and businesses during late-night hours when police response was slower and witnesses were fewer. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday when Danny first noticed the pattern that others had missed. 3 individuals had been conducting surveillance of the gas station over the past week, studying employee schedules, customer patterns, and security procedures with the kind of systematic approach that indicated professional criminal planning rather than opportunistic crime. Danny began documenting their activities with the methodical precision of military intelligence gathering. The surveillance team used different vehicles on different nights, positioned themselves at locations that provided optimal observation while minimizing their own visibility, and employed communication methods that suggested coordination and planning beyond typical street crime. The behavioral pattern was troubling. The surveillance subjects were studying not just the gas station's operations, but also the response capabilities of local law enforcement, the timing of police patrols, and the security measures that protected cash handling and employee safety during late-night hours. Danny's Marine Force Recon training had taught him to recognize the difference between random criminal activity and coordinated operational planning. The surveillance pattern he was observing matched indicators for planned armed robbery conducted by experienced criminals who understood security procedures and law enforcement response protocols. Most concerning, the surveillance activities suggested that the criminal team was planning an attack during the early morning hours when staffing was minimal, police patrols were less frequent, and potential witnesses were unlikely to intervene or provide immediate assistance. Over the next week, Danny implemented a security assessment while maintaining his routine duties. He analyzed the criminal team's surveillance methods, evaluated their operational security techniques, and developed defensive strategies that could protect customers and employees if the anticipated attack materialized. The intelligence revealed that the criminal team was more sophisticated than typical convenience store robbers. They had studied the gas station's cash handling procedures, identified vulnerabilities in the security camera coverage, and developed escape routes that would allow rapid departure while avoiding main roads where police interception was most likely. The operational planning indicated criminals with significant experience in armed robbery, possibly including military or law enforcement backgrounds that provided tactical knowledge and weapons proficiency. Danny recognized the methodology because he'd encountered similar planning during military operations against organized criminal groups. Most importantly, Danny identified that the criminal team was prepared for armed resistance and had conducted surveillance of his own activities as the station's security guard. This suggested they viewed him as a potential threat to their operation and might escalate to violence against security personnel to eliminate opposition. Danny's combat training allowed him to recognize that this wasn't just a robbery. It was a military-style assault on a civilian target conducted by criminals who understood tactical operations and were prepared to use lethal force to achieve their objectives. Danny began implementing defensive measures while maintaining the appearance of routine security operations. He coordinated with station management to enhance cache security procedures without revealing the specific threat intelligence. He modified his patrol patterns to provide better coverage of potential approach routes, and he established communication protocols with local law enforcement that would enable rapid response if needed. The preparation required careful balance between security enhancement and maintaining normal business operations. Two obvious defensive measures might deter the criminal team temporarily while driving them to target other businesses, but insufficient preparation could result in casualties among customers and employees. Danny's military experience had taught him that effective defense required understanding the enemy's capabilities and planning accordingly. The criminal team possessed tactical knowledge, sophisticated weapons, and coordination that required military-level defensive response to neutralize effectively. But Danny also understood that his role was protection rather than elimination. His objective was to defend innocent people and property, not to engage in combat operations that could endanger the community members he was sworn to protect. The attack came at 3:15 a.m. on a Friday night, exactly as Danny had predicted based on his analysis of the criminal team's surveillance patterns. 3 armed men entered the gas station with military precision, using coordinated movements and covering fire positions that indicated advanced tactical training. Danny's Marine Force Recon training activated immediately. Instead of taking defensive positions that would leave customers and employees vulnerable, he began implementing active defense protocols designed to disrupt the criminals' operational plan while protecting innocent people. The lead robber expected standard compliance from a gas station security guard, hands up, cooperation with robbery demands, and passive acceptance of criminal control over the situation. Instead, he encountered tactical resistance from someone who understood armed combat and had been trained to win firefights against experienced enemies. Danny used environmental advantages to neutralize the criminal's tactical superiority. He employed cover and concealment techniques learned in military operations, used communication and coordination methods that confused their operational planning, and implemented defensive strategies that protected customers while eliminating threats. The engagement was brief but decisive. Danny's military training and combat experience allowed him to neutralize armed criminals who had expected easy compliance from civilian security. His tactical response prevented robbery, protected innocent people, and demonstrated why elite military specialists continued to serve their communities even after leaving active duty. The aftermath of the failed robbery attempt brought immediate law enforcement response and media attention to what could have been a devastating crime. Police arrived to find 3 armed criminals subdued and a gas station full of customers and employees who had been protected by security guard whose response exceeded anything they had expected from civilian security. Detective Lisa Rodriguez was the first to understand that Danny's response had been far more sophisticated than typical security guard training would provide. "Danny, you handled that situation like a military operation," she said during the preliminary investigation. "That wasn't standard security guard response. That was tactical engagement conducted by someone with advanced combat training." The criminals themselves were shocked by the level of resistance they had encountered. They had planned for standard civilian security and police response, not for tactical opposition from someone with elite military experience who understood combat operations and weapons employment better than they did. Gas station manager Tom Chen struggled to process how his reliable security guard had managed such a complex tactical engagement. "Danny, you prevented what could have been a robbery and multiple casualties. How did you know how to handle armed criminals with that level of expertise?" "That's exactly why I work late-night security," Danny explained to the assembled group of police officers, employees, and customers. "I spent 8 years as a Marine Force Recon operator conducting combat operations in some of the world's most dangerous environments. But when I left active duty, I wanted to use those skills to protect honest working people during the hours when they're most vulnerable." Detective Rodriguez realized she was looking at former Marine Force Reconnaissance, the elite military unit whose members were trained for deep reconnaissance and direct action operations behind enemy lines. "Danny, you're not just a security guard. You're a former Special Operations Marine whose combat training just saved multiple lives." The investigation revealed that the criminal team had been responsible for numerous armed robberies throughout the metropolitan area, targeting late-night businesses with sophisticated tactical operations that had overwhelmed conventional security measures. Danny's military response had ended their crime spree and prevented additional victims. Local news coverage highlighted how a former Marine Force Recon operator had chosen to continue his service by protecting community members during their most vulnerable hours, demonstrating that military expertise could transition effectively to civilian protection roles. In the weeks following the incident, the gas station became a symbol of how military veterans continued serving their communities through civilian roles that utilized their specialized training for public protection. Danny's tactical response had prevented not just one robbery, but had eliminated a criminal team that threatened the entire community's safety. The story resonated with other veterans who had transitioned to civilian security roles, demonstrating that military training could be effectively applied to community protection without compromising the civilian nature of American society. Danny worked with local law enforcement to develop security protocols for late-night businesses that could better protect employees and customers from increasingly sophisticated criminal operations. His military expertise provided insights that improved community safety while maintaining the commercial viability of businesses that served essential community needs. Danny decided to remain in civilian security work, but with expanded responsibilities that recognized his unique qualifications. The gas station chain hired him as Regional Security Director, responsible for developing protective protocols for their late-night operations throughout the metropolitan area. Local law enforcement maintained Danny as a consultant for cases involving sophisticated criminal operations that required military-level tactical understanding. But his primary focus remained on the community protection work that prevented crime, rather than just responding to it after people had been victimized. Veterans organizations used Danny's story to demonstrate how military training could be successfully applied to civilian roles that served community needs while providing meaningful employment for service members transitioning to civilian life. 2 years later, Danny had transformed late-night security operations for convenience stores and gas stations throughout the region. His protocols for threat recognition, tactical response, and community coordination had prevented numerous crimes while maintaining the welcoming atmosphere that made these businesses valuable community resources. More importantly, Danny had demonstrated that military expertise could be effectively applied to civilian protection roles without militarizing civilian institutions. His approach combined tactical competence with genuine community service, creating security solutions that protected people while preserving the civilian character of American commercial life. The gas station itself had become a model for community-based security that protected working people during vulnerable hours. Law enforcement agencies pointed to it as an example of successful military to civilian transition that enhanced community safety. Veterans organizations used it for training programs on civilian security careers. Sergeant Maria Santos, who had worked with Danny throughout the criminal investigation, often brought new officers to the gas station for training. "This is what professional community security looks like," she would tell them. Not just watching and reporting, but understanding tactical operations well enough to protect innocent people when criminals bring military-level threats to civilian environments. Danny Martinez continues his security work at the QuikStop gas station, but everyone in the community now understands that their regional security director brings something unique to his role. He's the former Marine Force Recon operator who chose community protection over military career advancement, who understands that protecting working families during vulnerable hours is just as important as conducting combat operations in foreign countries. His story reminds us that military expertise developed in service to our nation doesn't end when someone leaves active duty. It continues in new forms of community protection that may be less dramatic, but are equally valuable to the people whose daily lives are made safer by that expertise. Sometimes the person ensuring your safety at a late-night gas station carries training from the Marine Corps' most elite special operations units, quietly preventing armed robbery with skills developed in combat zones around the world. These are the professionals who understand that true service comes not from seeking glory or recognition, but from protecting ordinary people during their most vulnerable moments. Danny's choice to remain in community security work rather than pursue high-profile military contracting represents something important about service: that protecting people doesn't require exotic locations or dramatic missions. Sometimes the most valuable service happens quietly during late-night hours, provided by professionals whose expertise ensures that honest work and essential commerce can continue safely. The next time you stop at a gas station during late-night hours and notice the security guard who seems particularly observant and professionally competent, remember Danny's story. That person might just be someone whose background in elite military operations continues to serve and protect, one community at a time.